Israel has declared it is at war.
We are standing in all that's left of an Israeli police station that was overrun by Hamas.
ما بين 200 إلى 250 أسر.
There's no other solutions but this weapon.
October 7th, 2023. The Palestinian group Hamas carried out a surprise attack on southern Israel, killing 1,400 people and seizing around 240 hostages, in what has now become the deadliest day in Israeli history. Now, this attack wouldn't have been possible without the ruthless and well-equipped Hamas soldiers trained to do one thing: kill. Let's take a look at the 10 deadliest Hamas hitmen in history and what happened to them after service. Number 10. Salah Shehade. January 9th, 2002. Shehade planned and executed the killing of 4 soldiers under Israel's Defense Forces, aka the IDF, along with the slaughtering of 5 students in Atzmona, all in a bid to push the Hamas movement. While these are just a scratch on the surface of crimes committed by Shehade, he in turn faced the worst possible death any human can have. Born in Gaza and a member of Hamas since the formation of the group in 1987, Shehade quickly became one of the most influential characters and was arrested twice by Israeli authorities in 1984 and 88. However, after the death of Yahya Ayyash, Shehade became a top leader in the group, along with Mohammed Deif and Adnan al-Ghoul. Shehade masterminded several attacks against both Israeli soldiers and civilians in the Gaza Strip and Israel proper. He led the Izz ad-Din al-Qassam Brigades, military wing of Hamas, resulting in the deaths of hundreds. However, the biggest mistake Israel made was releasing this man from his 3rd prison sentence, because once he got out, he orchestrated even more attacks that made him not just a Hamas leader, but a threat to the entire country. This meant one thing: Salah Shehade needed to go. July 22, 2002. As imprisonment proved ineffective in stopping Shehade, the IDF resorted to using a drone to target his residence. Once they grabbed his location, a 1-ton bomb was deployed, resulting in the tragic demise of Shehade, his wife, and their daughter. The impact was further intensified as the bomb obliterated 8 houses entirely and partially damaged 29 others. The attack claimed the lives of 15 individuals, leaving approximately 150 others injured. Was it worth it? You tell us. Number 9. Nidal Farahat. June 2001. Nidal manufactured the first Qassam artillery, a weapon that had been used to attack Israel and kill hundreds of people. However, that would be one of many evil things he did during his time in the Hamas military. A year before creating Qassam rockets, Nidal joined the Izz ad-Din al-Qassam Brigades, arguably the deadliest unit of Hamas. Farahat became an active member of the organization, planning and carrying out many operations on Jewish settlements in the Gaza Strip. However, during one of his operations, he was arrested and detained in an Israeli detention camp for 3 years, and upon his release, he was a different beast. October 26, 2001. The first Qassam rocket was launched into the Israeli city of Sderot, claiming innocent lives. Leaders of these brigades urged Farahat to create a better version of the Qassam, which is the Qassam II. Now, that rocket was an angel of death, claiming lives and causing catastrophe to anyone or anything it touched. The Hamas military proceeded to use Qassam II extensively, launching hundreds of them into nearby towns around the Gaza Strip for the next 3 years. However, Nidal didn't stop there. He became a bomb maker, supplying the Hamas and Arab militants with explosive devices and homemade rocket launchers like the Al-Bana and the Batar. He also worked under the direction of a top Hamas leader, Salah Shehade, on the conception of a drone that could fly over Israeli towns and bomb them. But that was when things would take a wild turn. February 16, 2003. Nidal was working along other militants on newly acquired parts of the drone when one of them booby-trapped and exploded. The explosion killed him and 5 other militants. To the Hamas community, it was the end of a hero and creative leader. To the Israelis, it was Nidal getting a good taste of his own medicine. Number 8. Wael Nassar. 1995, Nassar planned to carry out a suicide bombing in Israel. on the orders of top Hamas leader Ahmed Yassin. However, his plans failed, and what happened to him next changed the course of his life forever. 1993. Nassar joined the Hamas military not long after the organization's founding. His first role as a Hamas soldier was being the personal bodyguard of Ahmed Yassin, one of the founders of Hamas and one of its spiritual leaders. Under Yassin's influence, Nassar was commanded to lead a handful of attacks against the Israeli Defense Forces in the Gaza Strip, leading to the death of many. However, the turning point in his life came when he attempted to carry out a suicide bombing in Israel. Now, at that time, Palestinians were engaged in a peace treaty with Israel, and as Nassar failed to infiltrate Israel and detonate the bomb, Hamas had no choice but to exile him. This officially put him on the IDF's most wanted list. He managed to live the next couple of years in hiding until he was able to execute a suicide bombing in Israel, but the twist was, he wasn't the one doing the bombing. January 2004. Nassar recruited a 22-year-old female Palestinian named Emad Akel to be a suicide bomber. Unlike most bombers, Riashi came from a wealthy family and even had children. However, she was involved in this affair with a Hamas commander, so Nassar and a few other leaders suggested she'd carry out the bombing to cleanse her name and honor. On January 14th of said year, she went towards the Erez crossing at the Gaza Strip to execute this operation. When she got to the metal detector at the terminal, Riashi pretended to be crippled and claimed to have metal plates in her leg, which would sound that alarm. She was then taken to an area where a group of soldiers and policemen were checking bags, while a few women were asked to come search her body inside a cubicle. But once she got in, she detonated the bomb, killing many officers and Palestinian civilians. As if that wasn't bad enough, he would orchestrate yet another bombing 4 months later by placing explosives under an Israeli APC in Gaza City's Zeytun neighborhood, killing 6 IDF soldiers. At this point, Nassar wasn't just a mere Hamas militant. He was a terrorist, and he needed to go. May 30th, 2004, while Nassar was riding a motorcycle in Zeytun. But out of nowhere, this IDF drone fired a missile straight at that bike, killing him, his assistant, Mohammed Sarsour, who was riding with him, as well as a bystander, bringing an end to his decade-long notoriety in the Gaza Strip. Number 7. Emad Akel. The Israelis are after me, and they'll go on following me until I fight back, and then I'll die at their hands. For this reason, I'll go to paradise. Those were the words of Emad Akel, aka the Ghost, before his tragic death for being a ferocious Hamas militant. Born in 1971, Emad had a rough childhood living around the Gaza Strip, and things would take a dark turn when his family vanished before his eyes. His cousins, whom he lived with, were arrested and he never got to see them again, while distant relatives were killed by Israeli troops on the battlefield. These occurrences flipped a switch in his head, turning this once academic teen into a lethal killing machine for Hamas military. September 23, 1988, Emad was arrested alongside his brother for their Hamas membership, but would be released a year later. And it's safe to say prison did more harm than good, because once he got out, he became more ruthless. It was at this point that he earned the nickname the Ghost for his many disguises, including dressing up as a Jewish settler with a kippah. In the early 1990s, Akel topped Israel's most wanted list for his suspected role in killing 11 Israeli soldiers, an Israeli civilian, and 4 Palestinian informants in a series of attacks. However, it didn't take long before Emad met his gruesome end. November 24, 1993, a Palestinian informant reported Emad Akel's location to the IDF. He was hiding with other people in a house in Sujaiya, located in the Gaza Strip. Immediately after receiving this intel, they put the entire neighborhood under siege. Emad received news of this and tried escaping, but was spotted by soldiers and shot dead. Knowing full well that his death would cause chaos and violent demonstrations amongst the Palestinian supporters, Emad's body was quickly buried at a nighttime cemetery and kept secret. Number 6. Ahmed Jabari. September 26, 2002, an Israeli Hellfire missile crashed into the car carrying the then commander of the Hamas military group, Mohammed Deif. This eventually led to Mohammed's death. But after that death came the rise of Jabari as the new commander. Born in 1960 in the village of Sajaiya, Gaza, Jabari was the son of a family from Hebron that had been forced to leave the West Bank on account of a blood feud. That led to the dislike of Israelis, leading him to the dreadful Hamas community. After serving 13 years, Jabari was released. The stories of his works promoting the Hamas movement behind prison walls propelled him to become a leader in the outside community. He was involved in awful terror bombings committed by Hamas after the assassination of Yahya Ayyash, claiming the lives of 59 Israelis. October 1998, after helping execute a terrorist attack on a school bus in the settlement of Kfar Darom that killed 2 Israeli students, he was arrested again by the Fatah security forces and jailed in Gaza. But this arrest was a blessing in disguise for Jabari. Why? Well, because while he was incarcerated, he befriended the former head of Hamas in Gaza, Abed al-Aziz Rantisi, who appointed him as a liaison between the military wing of the organization and its spiritual founder, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. Having such a key connection, it didn't take long before Jabari was released, allowing him to perpetuate another attack by sending a Hamas hit squad into Israel, resulting in the death of 2 soldiers and ultimately taking Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit hostage in Gaza. This was by far one of the most successful Hamas operations. They released Shalit in exchange for over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israelis' custody. It was a huge victory for Jabari and Hamas, but it also marked the beginning of his end. November 12, 2012, after cautiously avoiding public appearance and numerous assassination attempts, Jabari was brutally killed by an Israeli drone strike while driving along Omar Mukhtar Street in Gaza City. His death marked the beginning of Israelis' offense against Hamas militants, tagged Operation Pillar of Defense. Number 5. Yahya Ayyash. 1992, Ayyash joined Hamas as a technical bomb maker. That decision came after Israeli authorities denied him the opportunity to live a decent life. March 6, 1966, Yahya was born in the Palestinian town of Rafah. As a child, he displayed signs of becoming a prodigy. He had a keen interest in electrical and mechanical works, repairing radios, TV sets, and the like. Keep in mind that he was born into affluence and money was never his problem. However, after bagging that degree in electrical engineering, Ayyash tried to get a master's in a university in Jordan, but was denied permission to do so by Israeli authorities. In turn, he would utilize his skills in a place where they found value, with Hamas. Ayyash built bombs used in a number of suicide attacks: the Mehola Junction bombing, the Hadera Central Station massacre, the Aged Bus 36 bombing, the Ramat Gan Bus 20 bombing, and as a part of a strategic alliance between Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Ayyash built bombs used by Islamic Jihad at the Beit Lid massacre. However, it wasn't solely about his ability to construct these explosive devices. What set him apart was the unique manner in which he assembled them. Because TNT and other high explosives were generally not available in the Palestinian territories, Ayyash used a combination of homemade cleaning agents which, once combined, formed a deadly explosive known as Mother of Satan. The crazy part is he went undetected by the IDF for years, until 3 bombers ratted him out to Israeli forces. October 1995, a special Israeli security agency, Shin Bet, set out to assassinate Ayyash. They got a hold of his childhood friend, Osama Hamad, who agreed to cooperate. Shin Bet agents gave Hamad a cell phone and told him that it was bugged, so they could listen in on their conversations. They didn't tell Hamad that in addition to eavesdropping, this phone contained 15 grams of RDX explosives. Once Hamad handed over the phone to Ayyash to make a call to his dad, and Shin Bet agents were able to confirm he had the phone with him, they remotely detonated that explosive, blasting his head into 1,000 pieces. Number 4. Adnan al-Ghoul. 9:30 a.m., January 22, 1995, a Palestinian suicide bomber disguised as an Israeli soldier approached the bus stop at the Beit Lid Junction in central Israel. The bus stop was full of Israeli soldiers on their way to their bases after their weekend vacation. The suicide bomber walked into the crowd and detonated the hidden explosive belt he was wearing. About 3 minutes later, a second suicide bomber would explode at that same spot, killing and injuring people wounded in the first explosion, as well as bystanders who had rushed to the scene to assist the victims of that first explosion. The man who planned and carried out this massacre was Hamas militant Adnan al-Ghoul, identified by the IDF as Hamas's top bomb maker. Al-Ghoul joined the organization soon after its creation in 1988. He then would be assistant to the brigade's top engineer, Yahya Ayyash, but took over his role after Ayyash's murder a few years later. Early in the Al-Aqsa Intifada, al-Ghoul developed the Qassam rocket alongside Nidal Farahat. He then took it one step further with the development of weapons made from raw material and equipment smuggled into the Gaza Strip using tunnels. Among those weapons were anti-tank rockets such as the Al-Bana, the Batar, and the Yassin. Al-Ghoul also prepared the explosive belt for the 96 Purim suicide bombing at Dizengoff Center in the heart of Tel Aviv, where 10 Israeli civilians were killed. I could go on and on about different attacks this guy has orchestrated, but the tipping point of this lies in how al-Ghoul was actually killed. September 26, 2003. This man was attending a meeting with Mohammed Deif, Ismail Haniyeh, one of Hamas's political leaders, and the organization's spiritual leader, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, when Israeli forces would bomb the house they were gathered in. And although al-Ghoul survived this attack, he was killed in an airstrike a year later along with his 2 sons and his nephew. Number 3. Marwan Issa. In 1996, Issa was part of a group that participated in a series of martyrdom operations as revenge for the assassination of Hamas engineer Yahya Ayyash. However, the repercussion he faced is quite different from all the others we've seen so far. Marwan was born in a refugee camp in central Gaza Strip back in 1965. He grew up carrying the dream of returning to the village from which his family was displaced, Beit Timah. However, while that dream never materialized, he conceived a new one, defending the land of Hamas. He's responsible for Hamas's special op forces, where he's associated closely with the external leadership. On top of that, he was incarcerated in Israel for 5 years, following his involvement in multiple terrorist attacks. During his incarceration, the IDF concluded that Issa is a man of actions, not words. And they say he's incredibly intelligent to the point of being able to turn plastic into metal. But as we've come to realize, keeping men like Issa incarcerated doesn't change a thing. Once they get out, it'll be the same old story. That predicament has pushed the IDF to launch many assassination operations against Issa, but they've all failed. One such operation is the November 2012 airstrike attack, killing fellow Hamas militant Ahmed Jabari. Issa was also targeted, but survived. As retaliation, he played a pivotal role in transforming the Qassam brigades from semi-military cells into an organized military structure, forming battalions and units, according to a clear military hierarchy. This made him a significant threat to Israel, placing him on the list of the most wanted. So what exactly happened to him? Well, it might interest you to know that Marwan Issa has grown from being an ordinary Hamas militant to becoming a political negotiator between Hamas and the rest of the world. He's facilitated numerous negotiations for the release of Hamas prisoners in Israel. March 2023. Marwan Issa issued a warning of a quake hitting the region if the Al-Aqsa Mosque were to be tampered with. He stated that Israel had terminated the Oslo Accords and that the coming days would be filled with events. This prediction proved accurate when the Sword of Jerusalem battle was declared on October 7, 2023. Till today, Issa has escaped the hands of both justice and death, and no one knows for certain what fate befalls him next. Number 2. Mohammed Deif. October 7th, 2023. Hamas launched that unexpected attack on Israel. Then within hours of that attack, a recorded statement was released by a Hamas TV channel, showing Deif as he said the words, "Enough is enough." 1965, Mohammed was born and raised in the Khan Yunis refugee camp in the Gaza Strip. He had a formal education and graduated with a degree before joining Hamas. This was around the time of the First Intifada, or Palestinian uprising. Subsequently, he was arrested by Israel for his activities in 1989, where he spent more than a year in an Israeli jail before continuing to Gaza. Upon his return, Deif rose up the ranks in Hamas. He has been accused of overseeing several suicide bombings that had killed dozens of Israelis. And while these attacks didn't go unnoticed by the IDF, Deif has been hailed as the ultimate survivor of Palestinian resistance and has consistently eluded multiple assassination attempts, earning him the moniker, the man with 9 lives. But what you need to know is that survival, in Deif's case, hinges on maintaining an elusive presence. The sole official photo circulating of him is over 2 decades old, and no one even knows his real name. The name Deif itself translates to guest in Arabic, symbolizing his practice of never staying in the same place for more than a night to evade Israeli capture. That's pretty tough when you think about it. But while Deif has not emerged unscathed, having reportedly lost his sight, one arm, and one leg in a 2006 Israeli attack, he's remained a significant and enduring figure within Hamas. His leadership marked many strategic shifts for Hamas, particularly during the early 2000s. He implemented the construction of underground tunnels for launching incursions into Israeli territory, emphasizing the extensive use of rockets as well, an approach he calls the below and above strategy. While he champions in his current position, it's uncertain what this direct replica of the devil has cooked up for the people of Israel. And number 1. Yahya Sinwar. He might have never pulled a trigger, but this man has ruthlessly killed more Israelis than the average Hamas militant out there. Born in 1962, Sinwar was born in Khan Yunis refugee camp when the Gaza Strip was under Egyptian rule. His family was expelled from the al-Maktal Asqalan during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and sought refuge in the Gaza Strip. Sinwar was raised in this camp, even receiving an educational degree in Arabic studies, but soon after, everything would change. 1982, Sinwar was arrested for subversive activities, incarcerated for months at the Farah prison, where he met other Palestinian activists. Meeting these people made Sinwar dedicate his life to the Palestinian cause. 1988, Sinwar orchestrated the abduction and killing of 2 Israeli soldiers and the murder of 4 Palestinians suspected of cooperating with Israel. He admitted to his involvement during questioning, revealing that he strangled 2 victims, unintentionally killed another during a violent interrogation, and accidentally shot the 4th during an attempted abduction. For this, he was sentenced to 4 life sentences in 1989, but served 22 years before being freed in a 2011 prisoner exchange for IDF soldier Gilad Shalit. This was by far one of the worst mistakes made because upon that release, he became a different beast. In 2015, he oversaw the torture and execution of Hamas commander Mahmoud Ishtiwi on charges of embezzlement and homosexuality. 2 years later, he ascended the throne as the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, rejecting reconciliation with Israel and advocating for the capture of more Israeli soldiers. Well, this obviously led to the 2023 Israel-Hamas war, in which Sinwar's proposing the release of all Palestinian prisoners in Israeli confinement in exchange for the release of all the hostages kidnapped in this conflict.